In the quiet historical town of Richmond, Virginia, the Waller family was viewed as a model of Southern tradition. Their large, weathered two-story home was nestled in the heart of an oak-lined street, an area where families had lived for generations. The Waller residence, with its deep front porch and sprawling backyard, was often a gathering place for family events. It was a place where Dana and Marcus, along with their parents, lived their seemingly ordinary lives. Dana, at 35, was the eldest Waller child. She had always been the responsible one, known for her kindness and warm-heartedness. As a nurse at the local hospital, she dedicated her life to caring for others. She was the backbone of the family, always the first to offer help, support, or advice. Her younger brother Marcus, 33, was more reserved. A gifted mechanic, Marcus worked in the family-owned auto shop. His rough hands and quiet demeanor made him somewhat of a mystery in the community. Together, Dana and Marcus had been inseparable since childhood. They were best friends, confidants, and had a natural ease with each other that made them appear like a perfect sibling duo. Their shared experiences and close-knit relationship made them a model of familial harmony, at least on the surface. What the outside world didn't know, however, was the dark secret that simmered beneath their image of perfection. Dana and Marcus's bond began innocently, as most sibling relationships do. They were two children growing up in a house filled with expectations and rules. Their parents were traditional and strict, pushing them to succeed and fit into a mold that was steeped in old-world values. But in the face of such constraints, Dana and Marcus found comfort and companionship in each other. The foundation of their closeness was laid during their teenage years, when they confided in each other about their struggles and dreams. Dana shared her frustrations about her rigid parents, her desire to help people, and the pressure to be perfect. Marcus, too, struggled with his identity, his quiet nature often misunderstood by others. But when he was with Dana, he didn't need to explain himself. They were a world unto themselves, a sanctuary in each other's company. As they grew older, their relationship deepened in subtle ways. It was during one summer evening, after a family barbecue, that their bond crossed an unexpected line. They were sitting on the porch, watching the sun dip below the horizon, talking about relationships and love. Dana, in a rare moment of vulnerability, admitted she had never felt a connection with anyone as strong as the one she shared with Marcus. Perhaps it was the warmth of the evening or the quiet intimacy of the moment. But Marcus, who had always been protective of Dana, kissed her. It was brief, almost innocent, but it lingered in both of their minds. They quickly pulled away, uneasy, unsure of what had just transpired. At first they laughed it off, convinced it was a momentary lapse in judgment. But as time went on, the kiss grew into a complicated feeling neither could fully comprehend or ignore. Their relationship had crossed into dangerous territory, a place where love and guilt intertwined. As time passed, Dana and Marcus found themselves ensnared by the power of their forbidden bond. The initial confusion and guilt following their kiss had transformed into an all-consuming need. What had started as a shared, quiet understanding blossomed into a passionate and intense relationship that neither could ignore, despite the overwhelming sense of wrongness. In the early stages, their meetings were mostly innocent, though laced with an electric tension. They would spend hours talking, reminiscing about their childhood and reminiscing about their shared memories. But soon the emotional closeness between them gave way to physical attraction, and their bond became something far more dangerous and complex. Their once harmless flirtations evolved into stolen kisses, lingering touches, and secret nights spent together in the shadows of their family home. Dana would leave the house to visit friends, while Marcus would find a quiet corner in their family's garage or workshop to meet her. They carefully crafted lies to cover their tracks, telling themselves it was only temporary, that they could control it. But as the relationship grew, so did the guilt and the fear of getting caught. At the same time, the affair began to take a deeper toll on them both. Dana, a woman who had once prided herself on being level-headed and dependable, was now a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. She started to miss work, finding it difficult to focus on her patients. Every moment she was away from Marcus felt unbearable, and every time they were apart, a knot would tighten in her chest. Her thoughts, once clear and compassionate, now revolved around the constant guilt of betraying the trust of her family and her own sense of morality. Marcus, too, became increasingly erratic. The more time he spent with Dana, the more trapped he felt. His once peaceful and solitary life had been replaced by a frantic need to stay hidden. Every glance, every whisper, every moment of suspicion from their parents or close friends made him feel like a criminal. He tried to remain composed, but his inner turmoil was undeniable. He would snap at friends or family for no reason, or become distant and cold, knowing that the truth was slowly eroding his happiness. Yet despite the guilt and fear that gnawed at them, neither of them could pull away from the intensity of their love. It had become a drug, something they couldn't resist even though they knew it was destroying them. It was as if the secret was the only thing that kept them alive, the only thing that made them feel truly connected to each other. They were both trapped in the cycle of desire and remorse, unable to break free. And all the while, their once strong familial ties began to fray. As their relationship spiraled further out of control, the affair began to take a devastating toll on Dana and Marcus's emotional, physical, and social lives. For Dana, the guilt became suffocating. She had always been the family's caretaker, the one everyone turned to for advice, comfort, and support. She was the reliable daughter, the kind sister, and the nurse everyone trusted. But now, every smile felt hollow. Every gesture of kindness weighed down by the secret she carried. She began to lose her patience with the patients she had always cared for so deeply. Her warm, nurturing persona was replaced with a cold indifference that didn't go unnoticed. Her friends and colleagues at the hospital began to see her withdrawal. At work, Dana was no longer the reliable, compassionate nurse they had come to depend on. She arrived late, left early, and seemed distracted during even the most urgent situations. She found herself zoning out during conversations, her mind drifting to thoughts of Marcus. Even her relationship with her closest friends began to erode. She couldn't confide in anyone. After all, how could she explain what was happening? She had made her choice, and now she had to live with the consequences. Marcus, too, felt the weight of the affair. His work at the family-owned auto shop became his only escape. Yet even there, his thoughts were consumed with Dana. His usually calm demeanor was replaced with nervous energy. He made careless mistakes, his concentration shattered. The mechanic who once took pride in his craft now worked in a daze, feeling like a stranger in his own life. The guilt gnawed at him constantly, but every time he saw Dana, it was as if everything else in the world disappeared. But the toll wasn't just emotional. Physical symptoms began to manifest in both of them. Dana found herself exhausted, often unable to sleep, the weight of her secret stealing any peace she might have had. Her appetite disappeared, replaced by a gnawing emptiness that food couldn't satisfy. Marcus, too, was struggling with sleepless nights. His body had begun to betray him. His heart raced when he was alone. His hands shook when he was near Dana. And the constant stress made him forgetful and disconnected. The lies were starting to take their toll on their relationship with others as well. Friends who had once been close were now distant, sensing something had changed but unable to put their finger on it. The Wallers' family gatherings, once filled with love and laughter, now felt suffocating. No one dared to speak the unspeakable, but the tension was palpable. Their parents began to worry, noticing their children's odd behavior, but neither Dana nor Marcus was ready to confront the reality of their actions. The breaking point arrived when the weight of their secret became too much to bear. Dana and Marcus had been living in a bubble of secrecy for months, keeping their affair hidden from their family and friends. However, that bubble began to burst, starting with their father's sudden stroke. Their father, once the pillar of the family, had always been a source of strength and stability. The news of his stroke sent shockwaves through the family, forcing Dana to confront the fragility of life. At the hospital, as she clung to her father's side, her mind wandered, not to the familiar comfort of family, but to the unbearable tension that existed in her personal life. In that sterile hospital room, surrounded by life and death decisions and the heartache of watching her father in such a vulnerable state, Dana's guilt reached its peak. She had spent so many months betraying the very family that was now desperately holding on to her father's life. Every breath he took felt like a reminder of her betrayal. Marcus, too, was shaken by the news of their father's condition, though his reaction was more about his own internal turmoil. He had always prided himself on his control, on being the rock for his family, but now he found himself questioning everything. The affair, once so exciting and full of passion, now felt like a dangerous game they had no control over. He was tormented by his feelings for Dana, but equally haunted by the idea of losing the family he had worked so hard to protect. The hospital setting was where everything seemed to unravel. The stress of the situation made them both question what was truly important. Marcus wanted to stay by Dana's side, supporting her through the crisis, but he also realized that their affair was no longer sustainable. It was no longer something they could keep hidden, especially now that their father's health was in question. The stress of the moment broke Dana. She couldn't stand the pressure any longer. Alone in the quiet moments after their father's stroke, Dana came to a painful realization. She could no longer live with the weight of the lies, the guilt, and the overwhelming emotions that had consumed her. She had to decide if she would confess to their family or continue down the destructive path they had been walking. She could feel herself slipping into a place of numbness, her soul unraveling from the inside. Yet the hardest choice was still ahead of her. Could she risk everything to tell the truth, even if it meant losing everything? The breaking point wasn't just about their father's health. It was the moment Dana had to face herself, and face the consequences of her decisions. Just as Dana and Marcus were grappling with the aftermath of their emotional breakdown, another devastating revelation came. Dana was pregnant. This news threw them both into a spiraling descent, and the already fragile nature of their relationship was pushed to the breaking point. The pregnancy was a devastating reminder of what they had done, a physical manifestation of their forbidden love. It was as if fate itself had conspired to trap them. Dana was torn between emotions. On the one hand, the child was a symbol of their intimacy, of their shared secret. But on the other, it was a cruel reminder of their transgression. Dana had always been the one to care for others, to help those in need, but now she found herself overwhelmed by her own situation. She couldn't decide what to do. Should she keep the child? Could she carry the weight of being a mother under these circumstances? The pregnancy felt like both a punishment and a test of her own moral compass. Every moment was a struggle between wanting to protect the life she had created and knowing the profound consequences it would have on her family and the fragile relationship she had with Marcus. Marcus, on the other hand, was just as conflicted. He was devastated, but in a way he felt a strange sense of responsibility toward the child. Despite the emotional wreckage, he couldn't bring himself to deny the life they had created. For Marcus, the pregnancy represented both his love for Dana and his guilt for what had happened. It was also a reminder of how far they had fallen from grace. His anxiety grew with each passing day as he realized how deep they were in the lie, how impossible it would be to go back to the way things had been. The conversations between them became more heated, more desperate. Dana, uncertain of what to do, became even more withdrawn. She couldn't escape her inner turmoil, and her depression deepened. She struggled to focus on anything outside of her pregnancy. The guilt weighed on her, and her once vibrant persona now felt like a shell of what she had been. Her every movement was slow, deliberate, as if she was walking through a fog. Marcus, too, couldn't escape the weight of what they had done. He began to snap at people, even those he loved. He grew colder and more distant, finding it increasingly difficult to look at anyone without feeling the sting of his own betrayal. His work suffered, and he grew more reckless. The affair had already consumed their lives, but now the pregnancy was like a ticking time bomb. In the midst of all this, they were forced to confront their darkest fears. Could they continue with this? Would the child be the thing that ultimately destroyed them? Or could it somehow become a way to salvage what little remained of their broken connection? Both Dana and Marcus were consumed by fear, unable to make a decision but unable to move forward either. The tragic conclusion of Dana and Marcus's forbidden relationship was inevitable, but no less heart-wrenching. After months of secrecy, passion, guilt, and desperation, their bond collapsed under the weight of its own impossible nature. The affair had started as a spark, fueled by years of suppressed desires and the vulnerability they both felt in the wake of their father's stroke. What had once been a forbidden attraction blossomed into a full-fledged obsession. But as the consequences of their actions began to weigh heavily on them, it became clear that there would be no happy ending. The pregnancy was the final straw, the event that forced both of them to confront the irreversible damage they had done. Dana's pregnancy, initially a symbol of their bond, quickly turned into an unbearable weight. With their emotional turmoil reaching a fever pitch, Dana chose to end the pregnancy, a decision that fractured both of them even further. The termination was not just a physical ending, but an emotional one. It was a loss that neither could bear, the final shattering of a dream they had never fully acknowledged or accepted. For Dana, the termination of the pregnancy was an act of self-preservation, but it was also an act of destruction. It destroyed any remaining hope of reconciliation between her and Marcus. What had once been a passionate connection became a painful reminder of everything they had lost. Her guilt consumed her, and she sank deeper into isolation. Dana withdrew from her family, friends, and work, cutting herself off from all support. Her emotional state grew increasingly fragile, as if she had no way to cope with the magnitude of her choices. The vibrant, ambitious woman she had once been was gone, replaced by someone who couldn't even look at herself in the mirror. Marcus, too, was drowning in regret. His once confident demeanor became a mask for the torment he felt inside. The affair with his sister had destroyed his sense of identity, and now, the loss of the child they had created only deepened his despair. Marcus had always prided himself on being in control, but now he was completely adrift. He fell into a pattern of reckless behavior, drinking heavily, neglecting his career, and distancing himself from everyone who had once been close to him. He couldn't face the reality of what they had done. In his eyes, there was no way out. The future seemed hopeless, and the weight of the past crushed him at every turn. The affair, the pregnancy, and the termination had destroyed any semblance of normalcy in their lives. It had severed their connection with their family, particularly with their mother, who had always been their emotional anchor. Their mother, devastated by the revelation of their affair, could no longer look at her children without feeling a deep, irrevocable betrayal. The rupture in the family was complete. Trust had been shattered beyond repair, and the relationship that had once held them all together was gone. Their father's stroke had been the catalyst that started this tragic series of events, but it was their own actions that sealed their fate. The stroke had exposed the vulnerability in their family, and Dana and Marcus, feeling lost and desperate, had turned to each other for solace. But the affair had created a rift so deep that nothing could bridge it. The final consequence was not just the loss of their unborn child, but the loss of their future, their family, and any hope for redemption. What they had once shared was now a distant memory, replaced by a constant reminder of their darkest choices. In the aftermath of Dana and Marcus's tragic end, we are left with many haunting questions. Why did this happen? What drives someone to act in such a self-destructive way? Was it the lure of something forbidden, the excitement of a secret world they built together? Or was it something deeper, something rooted in unmet needs or emotional wounds that no one could see? Is there an inherent darkness within us all, waiting for the right moment to emerge, to cause irreparable harm? The tragedy unfolds because of a series of choices, each seemingly small at first, that eventually snowballed into an irreversible disaster. But at what point could they have turned back? Was there a moment when they could have stopped themselves, when the temptation hadn't yet clouded their judgment? Could they have reached out for help before it went too far? Or was it too late from the very beginning? In the end, it feels as if their fate was sealed from the start, bound by forces both internal and external that they couldn't escape. As viewers, we're left grappling with these difficult questions. What is it that makes a person cross that line, knowing full well the consequences they will face? Is it desperation for love or intimacy? Is it the desire to feel alive when everything around them seems empty? And why do people so often choose to ignore the warning signs, as Dana and Marcus did, until it's too late? Ultimately, what makes a person do this? Is it a weakness, a momentary lapse in judgment, or a deep unresolved need? What drives someone to destroy not only their own life but the lives of everyone around them? And when the dust settles and the pieces of their broken lives are scattered, what remains? Is it possible to ever truly heal from such a deep betrayal? These are the questions that linger long after the story is over, urging us to reflect on the nature of human desires, guilt, and the consequences of our actions. If you found this story as thought-provoking and intense as we have, please hit that like button and share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear your perspective on why such things happen and what could have been done differently. If you haven't already, don't forget to subscribe to our channel for more deep dives into complex stories like this one. We explore human nature, relationships, and the darker side of life, and we wouldn't want you to miss out. Thank you for watching, and remember, the choices we make today can shape the world of tomorrow. Stay thoughtful, and see you in the next video.